Well, hello everyone. I wanted to make a short lecture video dealing with this concept of learning and memory, and more specifically focusing on the concept of learning here as we get into advertising and consumer behavior. The more specific aspect of learning that I want to talk about now is classical conditioning. So let me begin by getting into some material relevant to what learning is, and then turn around and talk about classical conditioning. So let's begin. First of all, to define what learning is, learning's basic definition is this: any relatively permanent change in behavior due to an experience. Okay, it could be also due to reinforcement or maybe even both. I've often given the example in class that if you've got your head down looking at your phone as you start to cross the street and you almost get yourself hit, heaven forbid, that after that incident you find yourself always looking before you turn around and cross the street. You've learned something. You're always looking. You've changed your behavior due to an experience. You've learned something. Well, now, in terms of consumer behavior, okay, it's all about that behavior change. And what we're talking about here, all right, as far as a behavior change in consumer behavior terms, is that now maybe you turn around and you start to use a particular product or service. Who knows? Maybe you choose not to use a particular product or service, okay? Maybe you start using something or you stop using something. These are examples of a change in behavior because you've learned something. This is learning. Now, learning is very powerful. In fact, learning to like a new product affects, obviously, the fact that you're more motivated to buy that product, okay? Or that you feel good about using the product. So, learning to like a new product affects emotions, it affects motivation. Its impact is pretty profound. And one type of learning that we can talk about is called classical conditioning. Classical conditioning. Now, what I want to do here is define the elements of classical conditioning, and then I'm going to bring it all together. Now, the basic premise of classical conditioning is that learning is reflexive. Now, by reflexive, I mean you don't think about it. In terms of classical conditioning, you don't think about it, you just do it. All right, stimulus, and then you respond. You don't mentally think it out, cognitively think it out, you just do it. The four components of classical conditioning are these. First is an unconditioned stimulus. An unconditioned stimulus can be anything that brings about a natural reaction. It is a natural stimulus. It is unlearned, okay? A loud sound, especially if it's unexpected, can be a unconditioned stimulus and might bring about a natural unlearned response that you jump, all right? So an unconditioned stimulus can be anything. You will sometimes see me use the letters UCS in explaining this. An unconditioned response is a natural response. All right, it is a natural response and a natural reaction, a natural response that happens because of the presence of a natural stimulus. So the UCS happens first, and the UCR, unconditioned response, happens second. The stimulus causes the response. All right. A conditioned stimulus is something that all by itself has the power to do absolutely nothing. It is neutral. It is neutral, okay, in its design. You're going to find here in a moment that under certain circumstances, it is a very powerful element, all right? It is a conditioned stimulus. It is brought in. It's an outside stimulus. A conditioned response, all right, a conditioned response is a learned response. It is a learned reaction, all right? And basically, it happens because of the presence of a conditioned stimulus. So a conditioned response happens because of the presence of a CS, all right? Now let me show you some letters here, and hopefully let me clarify what these are. An unconditioned stimulus is shown as a UCS, and a UCS causes an unconditioned response. So a UCS leads to a UCR. An unconditioned stimulus results in an unconditioned response. A conditioned stimulus results in a conditioned response. Okay? Now, I probably have you completely confused at this point, but let me give you an example that may bring it all together. I've used this example in class, so I want to use it here before we get into consumer behavior. And this is an example about my dog at home and the use of dog biscuits, giving a dog biscuit. Excuse me. Imagine, if you would, that my dog during the summertime likes to sleep outside, likes to sleep in the doghouse, can't get the house cool enough, so the dog likes to sleep outside. All right? Now, in the middle of the night, I turn around and I come to the back door where the dog is out in the backyard, and maybe 1 in the morning, I flip on the porch light. The dog looks at the porch light. Why is the light on at 1 in the morning? And about 3 seconds later, I open up the door to the backyard and I come out with a dog biscuit, nice big milk bone dog biscuit. The dog gets happy. Oh my gosh, you're giving me a biscuit at 1 in the morning? This is great. Comes up, takes the biscuit. And if you know my dog, the dog takes the biscuit and goes, lays back in the doghouse and eats the biscuit. That's what he tends to do. And I just go inside and turn the light off. The next night, night number 2, maybe this time at 3 in the morning, I flip on the light. The dog wonders what the light's all about. And about 3 seconds later, once again, I come out with another dog biscuit. Dog's all happy. Yeah, I'll take that. Goes back in the doghouse with its biscuit. I go inside and turn the light off. The next night, the 3rd night, and the 4th night, and the 5th night, each night, I turn on the light, I wait about 3 seconds, and I come out with a biscuit. The 6th night, and the 7th, and the 8th, and the 9th, every single time, maybe different times, but I turn on the light, and I come out then with a dog biscuit. By the 10th night, when I turn on that light, do you think that dog's going to be confused as to what's about to happen? I bet it isn't. That dog understands, all right? It has been classically conditioned. Now, what are we talking about here? An unconditioned stimulus is anything that is a natural stimulus. And in this particular example, the unconditioned stimulus is that dog biscuit. As far as a dog concerned, that's a natural stimulus. That's food. And an unconditioned stimulus results in, you see the arrow, unconditioned response. What's the unconditioned response? You have a very happy dog. A biscuit makes for a very happy dog because it knows it's about to get a biscuit. A conditioned stimulus is neutral in the beginning. It's something that all by itself can do nothing at all. And in this example, the conditioned stimulus is that light. Now, the key here is this. When you pair up a conditioned stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus, when a light is followed by a biscuit, a light is followed by a biscuit, a light is followed by a biscuit, you create a learned reaction, a conditioned response, where a light makes for a happy dog. Why? Because it knows that a light is associated with the biscuit. So the dog gets all happy when the light comes on. You know, I bet that dog by the 10th night will be at the door before I even open the door, waiting for its dog biscuit. This is classical conditioning. A once neutral stimulus paired up with a known stimulus creates a learned reaction. All right? So what does this have to do with advertising? Now, in advertising, a lot of times we use classical conditioning to try and sell a product. We've got to come up with a natural stimulus that a lot of people like. And this is one that is used a lot. It's not always used, but it's used a lot. And that is a fun party scene. A picture of a lot of people together having a good time. Some kind of party or gathering usually evokes in most people a positive reaction, a positive emotion. So you have a natural stimulus resulting in a natural reaction. When you do these ads, the conditioned stimulus in classical conditioning is usually your product, whatever that product happens to be, okay? And the idea is that you're associating the product with a good time. And so hopefully when the customer goes to the store the next time and they see that product on display, they have a positive reaction, a positive feeling about it, and they buy it. That's the idea behind classical conditioning. That's how it's supposed to work, all right? So let me give you an example here, all right? The key to all of this is the conditioned stimulus, okay? The key to all of this is the conditioned stimulus. So let's say this again. The unconditioned stimulus And classical conditioning is typically a positive experience. You see pretty people dancing and having a good time. That is your unconditioned stimulus. Your conditioned stimulus is typically your product. And here everyone's having a good time, and you've got someone holding up the product in question. In this example is Bud Light. All right. Now the idea is that hopefully when you go to the store the next time and you see this display, you'll turn around and remember the product, you remember the ad, and you'll want to purchase it. Does this stuff work? You darn right it does. This is how classical conditioning tends to work, and it can be very, very effective. All right. Now, when we talk about classical conditioning, you need to know these two terms, preceding versus predicting. Some people have gotten the idea over time that when it comes to using classical conditioning to sell a product, all you've really got to do is to match up your product with any positive situation. That was the thought. All you got to do is take your product and put it with a party scene, a happy situation, something like that. People are going to just associate it. They'll get that positive feeling, and then when they see it, they'll buy it. Okay? That's your conditioned response. Now, does this work? Well, that's a good question. There was an example a long time ago where basically people were showing a party scene, people at the beach having a wonderful time, enjoying themselves and all that, pretty women, handsome men and all that. And believe it or not, the product they were selling was gum. Okay, Wrigley's gum and all the different types of gum. This was truly an example where they just paired up a product with a good time in sort of a preceding mentality to see if it would turn around and work. Guess what? It didn't. Sales of the different types of gum did not increase because people did not associate gum chewing with being at the beach. This was truly an example of preceding. Now think of that beach scene one more time and let's talk about predicting. Okay? Predicting means that a product, that conditioned stimulus, really has to associate well with the experience. So if you turn around and basically the product is, say, copper tone suntan lotion, and you're showing people at the beach having a great and wonderful time, and then you see them occasionally putting on the copper tone to protect themselves and kids, they may go together better. And if that's the case, then you've got a better chance of selling the product because people associate the product with whatever the unconditioned stimulus tends to be. The CS and the NCS go together a lot better. Okay, that's the difference between just pairing things up versus really one predicts the other. Now, finally, we talk about what is called extinction. Extinction basically occurs when a conditioned stimulus and an unconditioned stimulus are no longer paired up. Okay? If a conditioned stimulus is no longer paired up with an unconditioned stimulus, then a conditioned stimulus is no longer going to result in a conditioned response. Imagine if the light in my dog biscuit example, would come on, but there'd be no biscuit. It wouldn't take long for the dog to get to the point that the light comes on, there is no biscuit, so the light no longer makes for a happy dog. That's extinction. In terms of consumer, when a product is no longer associated with the good times, okay, an unconditioned stimulus is no longer associated with the product and vice versa, this is trouble. If people don't think of your product for whatever reason, when they see that ad, you're in a lot of trouble and probably you're not going to sell what it is. So these are some terms. This is what classical conditioning is. Hope this helps to explain things. All right, we'll talk to you soon.